Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Sai and I'll be solving the Leetcode to some task from an interview point of view, as this is a common interview question. In this problem, we have been given an array of numbers and a target number. We need to find two numbers in the array which add up to the target number and return their indices. We have been asked to assume that for any given input, there will always be an output. If you are asked to solve this problem during an interview and the interviewer does not mention this assumption, make sure you clarify it before beginning. I will give you a couple of interview suggestions during the coding part, so please do watch till the end. Now, one way to solve this problem is like this. In this code, we have an outer for loop and an inner for loop. The inner loop is iterated n times the length of the array in the worst case scenario, and therefore the complexity is nearly O of n squared. If the sum of the elements at index I and j matches the target, then we are returning the pair of indices I and j. But when the input array is large, this code will perform poorly. Let's look at a better way to solve this. Let's say our input array is this, and the target number is 9. Starting with the first number, let's write down the numbers which we need to get to 9, and we get this. As you can see, 2 plus 7 is 9, 7 plus 2 is 9, 11 minus 2 is also 9, and similarly 15 minus 6 is 9. Let's call the second array needed values, as these are the values we need to add to the elements in the input array to get to the target number. Now, looking at this second array, we can note that the first element 7 appears at index 1 in the input array, and the number 2 appears at index 0 in the input array. When iterating the input array, what if we stored the current number and its index into a hash map? We can then query the hash map when this current number becomes the needed value for another number. I'll explain this with an example. But if you're not familiar with the hash map, I've made a separate video explaining this data structure, and the link is in the description of this video. The key feature of a hash map is that it allows storing key value pairs, and you can query the value stored using the key. So let's go with the idea of having a hash map with the current number from the input array as the key and its index as the value. The first number in the input array is 2 at index 0. Now the needed number for 2 is 7, so that they add up to 9. We check if its needed value, that is 7, exists in the hash map. We simply insert 2 along with its index in the hash map. The next number in the input array is 7, and the number we need so that they both add up to 9 is 2. Now let's check if the number 2 exists in the hash map, and it does indeed exist. Let's get its index, that is 0. The index of the current number is 1 and the index of the needed number is 0. So our return value is the pair of the index of current element, that is 1, and the index of the needed element, that is 0. And this is our return value. And this is how we can find the indices of two numbers which add up to a target number. Now let's jump into the code editor and implement this. So I'm going to start off by defining the hash map where we will store the current element and its index. The key of this map is an integer, which will be the element from the input array, and the value is also an integer, which will be index of the current element. Now let's start iterating through the input array. I'm going to subtract the current element from the target, and that will be our needed value. The reason for doing this is that then I can look up the needed value inside the hash map. And if it does exist, that means I have found the pair of numbers which add up to the target. If I found it, then I need to return the index of the needed value and the index of the current element. As explained earlier, we need to insert the current element, that is nums of I, and its index I into the hash map as we iterate through the input array. Now, because Leetcode have explicitly stated that all the inputs will always have an output, we could simply return null here. But if you are in an interview, you need to make sure that that assumption has been stated upfront. So personally, I would prefer to not return a null because it is considered a bad idea. And the reason for that is it forces your caller to check for the return value, and if they fail to check it and if your method returns a null, it will lead to a null pointer exception. So one of the things you can mention while solving this task is to throw an exception. So in this case, I'm going to throw an illegal argument exception. I hope you found the video useful. Please do click the subscribe and like buttons and remember to share the video. Thank you.